if you want. So we can be short at like 10 and then.
This is an extra agenda.
Swing by.
I don't, I can put them out for the public. It's pretty good.
My daughter's getting married, so my son.
You guys ready? Josh, you good?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dean Vallone. I'm the president of the Lower Allen Township Board of Commissioners. Welcome to our meeting. We begin our meeting, well, first of all, calling this meeting to order. It's our regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners of today, April 11th, 2022. Proof of publication is available for this meeting, and we begin our meeting with a prayer and a pledge of allegiance. Let's pray. We pray this day to give thanks for all the many blessings bestowed upon our township. Watch over us who are entrusted with the administration of this township. Create in us the earnest desire to serve faithfully and permit us to experience the joys of noble service completed for our residents. Encourage cooperation from those who are served and from those who serve. Help us to use every willing service and every effort put forth for good government. Heavenly Father, we ask your guidance to help us as commissioners to make the right decisions. We ask that you aid our staff as they perform the daily tasks of running our township, and we request that you be by our first responders as they protect our residents and see that they return home safe at the end of each day. In your name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, welcome folks that are here in person with us this evening, and also those folks that are joining us online via the YouTube stream. Commissioners, thank you. Commissioners, we received in our packets this past week, as usual, the minutes from our prior meeting of March 28th, 2022. I would like to postpone that slightly here to move an agenda item up, as we have our agenda changed to discuss Resolution 2022 R17, if we can. We have put out a revised agenda. So I'd be looking to accept the motion that we discussed at our last meeting. This is Resolution 2022 R-17, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of Lower Allen Township, Cumberland County, Pennsylvania, on behalf of the commissioners, staff, and volunteers of Lower Allen Township, recognizing the contributions and dedication to Lower Allen Township of Carolyn E. Holtzman.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Vice President Black. I have a second from Commissioner Nagy. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Mr. President, I've got to leave at this time. If I get finished with this next assignment, I will be back, but don't slow down for me.
The Secretary, just note accordingly. Thank you. Commissioners, we did receive our meeting minutes from the March 28th meeting in our packets this week, and if there are no corrections to those minutes or any further discussion, I'd be looking for a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
No second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Nagy. I have a second from Commissioner Karen. Is there any discussion this evening? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Mr.
Is there an
President,
abstention?
there will be an abstention.
Okay. No opposed, one abstention. The motion carries 3-0 with one abstention. Excuse me. Next on our agenda this evening is room for audience participation on the items that are on our agenda. This means that if there's any item on our agenda that you see that you're here to discuss with us or make comment about, you let us know now. And then when we get to that agenda item, we'll have you come up to the podium to participate. Is there anyone here here to visit us tonight to talk about anything on our agenda? Yes.
I'll speak on agenda item 12.
Item 12, when we get to that. Okay, so Miss Katie Hall will want to come to the podium before we go into executive session.
That's what we have.
Is there anyone else this evening that would like to speak on any item on our agenda? Okay, when we get to that, we'll have you come up to the podium before we go into executive session. Next, under your president this evening, I'd be looking to accept the motion to move Daniel Bartosik, a maintenance specialist in the Public Works Department, from probationary status effective April 12, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Kutz, a second from Commissioner Nagy. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. And next, I'd be seeking to approve the check register of April 8th, 2022 in the amount of $601,088.18.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Kutz, a second from Commissioner Nagy. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Next on our agenda is the placeholder where we allow any business pertinent to the township to be discussed with anyone that's in attendance. We do limit those discussions to about 15 minutes per person. And now is the time, if you're here to make comment, you would come up to the podium and give your name and your address, and then we'll give the floor to you.
Thank you. My name's John Nyhart. I live at 104 U Road. I needed to get an update, if possible, on the UGI gas project. It's apparent that the work is now done, but there are some issues that are still unresolved as far as I'm concerned. We're hearing a lot of rumors about roads being repaved, possibility of some being repaved. A UGI representative did stop by our residence because we had some problems with some sidewalks, and that is being taken care of. But there's also some curbing that has been damaged by the work that was done. And also, again, we're hearing rumors, these roads might be done. There's a possibility only half because of the money available. And I was just looking for an update as far as what's the plan.
Okay. So I'm going to ask staff, and I think I'll have the township manager direct us. I'm sure he's been in the loop to at least some degree to start addressing the issue, and then he'll probably have staff address specific things.
Okay.
All right, thank you. We actually have not been in that much contact with UGI, other than being part of email chains between UGI and some other residents. They were waiting until the weather cooperated before they start with their repairs, both to concrete structures like curbs and also yards. So unfortunately, I can't give Mr. Nyhart a good idea of what the plan is because it's their plan. I just know they're starting now. They're starting to do all these repairs and things like that.
Okay. So, but what I'm hearing is that there's a major disruption, and I understand the timing with getting things done when the weather's nicer, but I mean, we as a municipality we have our standards with roads, and I think I would be concerned that that they would perhaps allow things to go on in a perfect world, they would just do the work when they're supposed to do the work, and perhaps like with COVID or issues with who knows what they have going on, if things start to get delayed, is there a point in which we start putting pressure on them because we have our own standards that we want to uphold?
Yes, which that point has not arrived. I understand that the residents want it done, but there are issues with weather delays and things like that. It is going to be done. We're satisfied that they're going to do it. They have to do it according to their PUC charter and such. So, this kind of reminds me of the issue in Arcona with the alleys that were supposed to be paved, and they didn't get paved fast enough for the residents, but they did get paved. This is a similar situation here. These things are going to be taken care of. I have no doubt of that. It's just a matter of getting it done in a timetable that's pleasing to everybody, which is unfortunately going to be impossible. As far as the paving goes, they have already committed to pave the streets that they dug up. So any streets that were damaged or even dug into by them will be paved.
Okay.
Any streets that haven't been, we will have on our own paving schedule within the next couple of years. So.
Any streets that aren't going to be repaved because of the work they've done we already have.
Will be part of our
Be
regular
a
paving
part- okay,
program.
got it.
Yes.
I would say at this point, do you want to comment back to that?
Sure. I mean, the question I have from a township standpoint, I understand that money obviously is a problem. We have lived on U Road since 1991, and there's been literally no maintenance done, other than some cracks being sealed and that kind of stuff. My wife and I have talked about putting our house up for sale due to the current environment. Unfortunately, when you drive down some of these streets, it almost looks like there's people doing graffiti because you have all kind of marks, which I understand. I had one in my driveway. I'm not sure why it was done because they never touched our driveway. But from a curb appeal standpoint, it doesn't look all that good. And I guess my question is, as far as the township being involved in the paving, what kind of timeline is there as far as getting everything done?
Well, I'm hearing two things. One, I'm hearing the graffiti kind of look, and I'm
Right.
imagining that's the line markings they make for reference.
That's correct.
Where they are, okay, and that orange or yellow or whatever, blue, whatever they use. So is that part of the restoration? Like they would actually just not leave those bright orange or yellow or something?
I don't know.
You don't know? Maybe that's something we can at least find out, because that would be a shame if the neighborhood was marked indefinitely and we don't get our paving done, which would maybe address that for a couple of years. And then secondly, as far as when paving's all going to be done, I mean, that, I think, is it every 2 years we approve the plan?
Yes.
We actually have a plan come before us, and it's usually our Public Works folks that bring that before us. And we use the dollars from the liquid fuels money, and we budget. So things ideally don't get done in as fast as every neighborhood would want them done. And maybe to some degree, not even by my own thoughts of how I think things should be done. However, I will say that the funds are limited, and those funds are used in a prudent manner that I've seen since I've been on the board. So as far as when it's all going to be done, I don't have an answer for you for that, and I don't think anyone here would really
I can
have
go
that.
in. I can go into a little bit of the paving program and how it's administered. So we have there's a process engineers use to grade the streets, and every 2 years the streets we drive the entire every 65 miles of road in township and assess the streets. They're graded. They are then put on a list from worst to best, and we use whatever money we get from the state for the liquid fuel taxes. We start with the worst one, and we do all the streets until the money runs out for that 2 year period. I know I've had conversations with folks that said my street has to be high on the list. Well, probably not as high as they would like it to be, but believe it or not, there are worse streets out there. It's absolutely true that they have not been repaved since they were built, but again, when you grade them, they fall. I mean, they're high, but they haven't made the top third yet. But we are planning on doing them, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that that UGI is doing some of them because of their work. So we want to get them all done. So they're going to be very close on the list.
Okay.
So briefly, just because I think you're referencing probably the same Facebook post that I saw about the paving.
Right.
So the thing about half being done, it's just a question of how much money do we have in the tank. UGI is going to do, I imagine, most of the neighborhood because they tour. No, not most. I mean, all of our galley.
They're only going to be milling the cuts and paving those cuts, not full curb to curb overlay. Because they perceive that there could be future connections, so that, they're not their own. That was part of the agreement with UGI, that they would only be milling those cuts.
Okay. So that'll leave the rest for us to do for
That's
curb
right.
to curb.
That's
Okay.
right.
Yeah. So at some point, it's just the higher they get on the list, it's the only way half of them get paved and half don't, or if we happen to run out of money halfway through Sheepford and part of the part of the neighborhood that's seen harsher traffic gets paved first, and then maybe the cul-de-sac don't make the list for that particular. But the process, that's just how it goes. And we do it every 2 years because we let the money accumulate so we have enough to do them. So I had this same conversation when I came on the board, and every time they get reassessed. So I understand the frustration of the curb appeal. We have the same thing out in front of my parents' house in our galley with, the patching and everything. I think the only part that's been redone is where we had the water main break down at Dishley in our galley, and they paved over that because they had to tear the whole street up. But hopefully we'll have some paving solutions for you soon. I know infrastructure money is hard to come by, so I'm certainly hopeful that Schieffer will get higher up the list, and I guess we'll see when Public Works makes their assessment over the summer.
Well, I can tell you that in the last couple of years, when the street sweeper came through, my car was actually damaged by the material that was swept, because it's mainly a granular, subject that because the road hasn't been done, it's deteriorating. So as a result, I guess my question would be, as far as the township is concerned, if there are higher priorities, other developments, which I understand that should be done, where are they? Because I'd like to see them.
Well, and I think that information is it's public based on what we've approved for the last plan. So that plan's in a hierarchy on that list.
Which I believe was the Cedar Cliff Manor neighborhood and Fair Oaks, the old part, which hadn't been done since John the 60s. By the time we got to it last time around. So I know there's, I know, look, having walked the entire township, and I'm sure many up here can tell you the same thing. I've seen the issues, and we're getting to them. I know the more traffic we get, the harder it is to keep up, especially when it's the same pot of the money and everything gets more expensive. So.
Right. I understand.
So one other comment while you're still there.
Sure.
And this is, I guess, just for staff, my thoughts for the last couple of years on this, because it is an ongoing issue, and every 2 years we have to address it with our priorities with the streets. But are there any prospects for infrastructure money coming down the pike? Is there anything? I mean, I've heard about the ARPA funds. Is there anything that we might supplement to move some projects up faster? I'm not suggesting throwing something out there, we need to do this or pursue it, but I mean, are there things that we know are in the pipeline that can give us a little bit of hope that maybe we can move some things along a little quicker than just the liquid fuels money that's coming in over, let's say, the next 10 years?
Well, ARPA funds are definite. We haven't earmarked that money yet. I don't know what else is in the pipeline. As far as infrastructure.
Yeah, there's an infrastructure bill and money will come to the state, but they haven't decided how they're going to divvy it out yet or not. I think the plan was to use a lot of it for bridge repair, so I'm not sure that a ton of it is going to get used to supplement the municipality's liquid fuels reimbursement, although that would be quite nice.
They also don't usually consider paving to be infrastructure. It's maintenance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you for bringing the healthy discussion to the meeting.
No, thanks for your time.
Sure. Is there anyone else here this evening to discuss any business pertinent to the township that's not on our agenda? Moving on to our Public Works Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have 2 items tonight. Sorry, I'm trying to get this. For your discussion and possible action. The first item is our PPC plan. That's our Preparedness, Prevention, and Contingency Plan. This is a plan that we review and every year for our NPDES permit with DEP. It is to ensure that no non-stormwater discharges leave our public works facility. And if they do, that we have a contingency plan to handle those discharges.
Mr. President, if there's no discussion, I'll move to approve the adoption I guess I'll move to adopt the preparedness, prevention, and contingency plan for the Public Works facility.
And I'll second that.
I have a motion from Commissioner Kutz, a second from Commissioner Karen. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. And I would just like to say thank you for the very well-written information that came this week on that. It was easy to understand.
Absolutely.
And appreciate the hard work that went into that in this plan. Thank you.
Moving forward, the second item I have, this is an agreement that the Township Commissioners establish yearly with the Stormwater Authority. This creates a standard for our process for bidding stormwater projects. It also states that both entities can award bids and that LATSA will finance, LATSA is the Stormwater Authority, Lower Island Township Stormwater Authority will finance the projects and then transfer money quarterly to the general fund to reimburse that fund. So it's a yearly agreement that we enter into with the commissioners enter into with the Stormwater Authority.
Commissioners, do we have any discussion on this item before we take action, if we do?
Mr. President, I move to approve stormwater agreement with the Lower Island Stormwater Authority.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Kutz, a second from Commissioner Nagy. Any other discussion or questions or comments?
Yes.
Commissioner Karen?
I was just thinking, this is the first time I reviewed it, being new to the board, and I was just thinking that perhaps it may be helpful just to clarify, although it is understood between the township and the authority, it may just be helpful to clarify, even in particular with the first sentence, just that all competitive bids will be performed jointly by the township and the authority, but those are just competitive bids with respect to stormwater projects. So I didn't know if we could somehow clarify that for those paragraphs below.
So would you want to amend number 1 to say for stormwater projects only?
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. Yeah, just provides a little bit clarification.
Yeah, if the intention is for stormwater projects, it would be nice to have that clarification in there.
That's not a problem.
Thank you.
Steve, do you want that as an amendment to the motion or an amended motion?
I think just amendment to your motion. I appreciate the comment, but I think that this is the same agreement we used last year, so it's enforced and it's an audit item. So if you just would amend your motion, indicate we're having that agreement, we're fine.
Sure. And we're, so, Mr. President, I will move to amend the motion to insert the word stormwater in sentence number 1. Is that an accurate depiction of your comments, Commissioner Karen?
Yes, just that it's all competitive bids with respect to the stormwater projects.
Okay, so we'll insert that word stormwater in sentence 1 as described, and you're looking for a second on the amendment.
I'll second the amendment.
I have a motion as amended by Commissioner Kutz and a second by Commissioner Nagy. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Is that it?
That's it. Thank you.
Moving on to community and economic development. Who will be leading this? Okay.
So we have a resolution before you. This is to name McMahon Associates as the Township Transportation Engineer. This is different than the Township Engineer, but PennDOT requires us every 5 years to go through a competitive selection process. This is helpful because oftentimes we're working on grants, and the grants require a competitive selection process. So if we've already gone through and have named them, then that kind of stands for the next 5 years. And we went through and used PennDOT's ECMS program to solicit bids or proposals. We received 7, and then we had a selection committee meet, and we kind of itemized them, and McMahon came out on top. McMahon was our previous engineer for transportation. So they would do this for grants, and then they also review transportation for some of our land development plans.
Okay. The question I have is how much work does the transportation engineer basically do for us in the course of a year's time?
I mean, it depends on how many land development plans that we're going to get in that are going to require a transportation impact study. or if we're doing a grant application, sometimes then we have to have our signal permits amended and they go through that process for us. So it just kind of depends on from year to year what we've been able to get funded and what comes, what gets submitted to us.
Okay, and are they involved with things that, when there's traffic studies and things like that, that come out of requests by the Planning Commission or even through the Community Economic Development?
So they do review some of the land development plans.
Okay, got it. All right, that's all the questions I have, Commissioners. Anybody else?
Yes, Mr. President. Aaron, can you describe part of this selection process for me? What criteria you used? And I mean, the committee, you said there were 7. Is it, how did you arrive at them?
Those are people that, after we solicited, we got 7 responses.
Right.
And then we had criteria, it was like 5 pages. We asked that it be no more than 5 pages. And PennDOT kind of sets out how they want this done, so we don't have a whole lot of flexibility. And things that we asked for were like the size of the firm, how local is the firm, how much experience have they had with PennDOT District 8, because it's who we're going to be working with. We review, sometimes they submit the resumes of the specific team that's going to be working on it. So after reviewing all of those kind of items, then you sit down and you come up with a list.
Okay. So there's a selection committee, you said. So this is the first I'm hearing of it. I was seeing this in the packet this weekend.
We were authorized to do this back in the fall. The board authorized us to go out and solicit bids or proposals for this. And it was one of those items that we wanted to follow up on sooner. However, it just kind of hung out there a little bit because it occurred right around the same time that our engineer left. And
Right.
since he was using the ECMS system, it took a little bit for us to get caught up to it. But actually, Brad, Tom, Becky, and myself all reviewed the proposals.
Okay. I guess I guess this is one of those things we just kind of have to trust the staff on for your review criteria, which obviously I do. My only concern was just that we hadn't heard about this, and we're just getting a resolution about it without much else. But I'm satisfied with the explanation of the criteria and the selection committee and everything. So I appreciate the explanation, because first thing I'm like, wait a minute, I'm just seeing this. How do we arrive at this group? So I appreciate the explanation on how you arrived there. So with that, Mr. President, I'm satisfied.
Okay, and the other thing too is you had mentioned that they've been our prior engineer. Mm-hmm. Was that in this last 5-year, they've been the engineer for the last 5-year period?
Yes.
Okay. They're the only one, other than what Brad did and Dan?
Right.
Okay. Got it. Okay. All right, Commissioners, any more discussion? If not, I would certainly entertain the motion to get this moving. It doesn't seem like we have a reason to hold it up.
Mr. President, I will move to approve Resolution 2022-R-18, naming McMahon Associates, Inc. as Township Transportation Engineer.
I'll second that.
I have a motion from Commissioner Kutz and a second from Commissioner Karen. Any more discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Next.
So we have another resolution. This is for our traffic signal maintenance agreement. This is something that PennDOT requires, basically stating we have certain standards and you will maintain the traffic signals to those standards, or we won't give you any money. And one of the reasons they're bringing this to our attention now is because we've received a grant, or 2 grants actually from them, and before they'll let us get started on that process, they want to make sure that we are going to properly maintain their traffic signals. And our last time we did this was, I want to say 2018, so they've changed the agreement slightly, but.
So the first thing is the first resolution is to allow McMahon Associates to work with them, right? to submit it?
Yes, oh, sorry, and the second item is
Right,
the
okay.
agreement, yes.
So Commissioners, the first resolution is actually appointing to approve, so McMahon and Associates can actually submit the traffic signal maintenance agreement on behalf of us, the Lower Allen Township.
I'll make a motion, Mr. President, for Resolution 2022 R-19, authorizing McMahon Associates to submit the traffic signal maintenance agreement on behalf of Lower Allen Township.
I'll second that.
I have a motion from Commissioner Nagy and a second from Commissioner Karen. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. And then on to the discussion on the municipal traffic single maintenance agreement, right?
Right.
Okay.
So that's,
Yeah.
that's the
So this
agreement
is-
that we have
this
to
is-
approve,
right.
and then we just gave McMahon, that is now authorized to be our transportation engineer, the authority to submit it for us. And through their submission, it names them as the entity that will be allowed to amend our permits.
Right. Got it.
Mr. President, I'll move to approve the Commonwealth and Municipal Traffic Signal Maintenance Agreement.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Kutz and a second from Commissioner Nagy. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
And the next item we have is the overall master plan, and it's a revised plan for Arcona. This is going to be presented by Charter Homes and Neighborhood. This was presented for the first time to the Planning Commission in December, and there's a 90-day period that we have to approve, and they actually gave us a 30-day extension due to some extenuating circumstances for not being able to have a meeting. So we do need to take action on this tonight, approve or not approve it one way or the other. And Anthony, do you want to talk about it?
Thank you.
Hey, Anthony, hang on just 1 second. What is where are we at with the clock on this?
There's,
Really, with the extension and everything?
it needs, the last day is the 21st of April, so it's before our next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then an overall master plan is kind of the guiding document, so as you're having these phases of development, it's going to give you the plan for, this is what we intend to do. And that's what we're looking at.
Got it. Thank you. All right, Anthony. Sorry.
Okay. Good evening. Anthony Ferranda-Diedrich with Charter Homes and Neighborhoods. We were here a couple weeks ago to talk about the plan that's up on the screen, and glad to be back this evening to continue the discussion. I'm joined here by Kelly Parson, who's our Central Pennsylvania Market President, as well as Laura Kern, who works closely with me on the development side of Charter's business. Just to reiterate what Aaron had said, over the past month or so that we've been discussing this phase with the board, we've shown you an updated land development plan for phase 8.1 at Arcona. That plan makes a couple of changes to the previously approved plan, including, and I'll just point them out quickly, including plans to eliminate 2 single-family home sites in this area of the plan to make way for a neighborhood pool. We eliminated a townhouse unit from this building in order to extend the lot lines for this home site. And then the third issue or change related to this plan was to change the use related to this home site. So not moving any title lines or changing anything related to the neighborhood design other than the change in this home site's use. That plan was reviewed by township staff, by the Planning Commission. It was ultimately approved by the board at a prior meeting, conditioned upon further review of the overall master plan update, which Aaron mentioned. The overall master plan being a general roadmap for how Arcona is going to be developed over the course of many years, I think this is the 9th year of we're into this project, but it's designed to reflect a roadmap for, again, how Arcona might be developed over the course of the next 15 years. And with every new land development plan that's been submitted, including revised land development plans like 8.1, that overall master plan has been updated and revised to just reflect changes in how we're thinking about developing those future phases. So what you saw come in with this revised land development plan was an updated overall master plan that reflected a new neighborhood core line. And that's really the subject of what we're discussing tonight. Your zoning ordinance provides that non-residential uses can only take place in the core neighborhood. And that neighborhood line's been reflected with modifications over the years to encompass a majority of land on the eastern side of the railroad tracks, the railroad here running along this side of the property. Several years ago, we amended that plan to incorporate this area, which is currently owned by the Lesher family. And we're proposing with this most recent revision to extend that core line to pick up this home site where we're going to be changing the use. Everything I described from you is, or just described to you, is permitted under your current ordinances, zoning ordinance, and we're not asking for any special relief in terms of how we handle amendments to the overall master plan as we move through this process. The conversation that we've had over the last couple of meetings surround this building and how it's going to be used. So on the original plan, this was reflected as a single-family home. And our proposal is to modify that use so that there's a small component of space on the ground floor of this building that'll be used initially as a neighborhood sales space and a space that potential buyers will come into to select not just home sites, but also make selections around fixtures and colors within the homes that they're building with charter. That currently is happening in a single-family home over in one of the prior phases of this project that was approved 6 or 7 years ago. With this area being where the residential development is continuing to occur, we want to make space for this model home or this area where you can select features, where neighborhood salespeople can walk you through home sites that may be available, options that you might have as you configure your home. And so that's what this space is designed to do. Again, there's a small area on the ground floor of this building that'll be utilized for that purpose, which is technically not a residential use, which is why we're changing the overall master plan. On the second floor of this building, we're proposing 2 one-bedroom apartment homes. The building has integrated into it a 2-car garage. You can see the driveway off of Sharps Drive into a side-load garage. There's also several parking spaces associated with the building and this use that I'll get to in a minute here as we continue the discussion. We heard in the prior meetings, there was concerns around, well, what exactly does commercial use mean? How would the building be used in the future once the charter sales effort goes away? What does the building look like? How is parking handled? How is traffic that's coming into the neighborhood handled for folks that are looking to have an appointment related to a home that they want to purchase, or in the future, what that, coming into the neighborhood to visit that non-residential space. The first significant update change that we made based on the conversations that we've had relate to what this building will look like. We went back and took a look at this and designed the outside of this building so that there's no outside appearance from this building that there's anything other than residential use occurring here. Again, while there will be some smaller scale office space on the first floor, we want to take care to acknowledge that the building is not going to contain signs for some robust commercial use, is not going to contain lighting. It's going to light the building up so that it looks like a commercial parcel, commercial building. This is going to look like and will fit in as a single-family home, which is in keeping with the other homes along this street. That's one element that we looked at as we went about kind of addressing comments that we had heard in these meetings. This is what the front of the building will look like. Again, you won't be able to tell looking at this building that it's anything other than a single-family home. When you pull into the neighborhood to come to this building, you have Rossmoyne Road up along the north here. This is Wayland Road. This is the main way in and out of the neighborhood through this intersection. This portion of the neighborhood along Wayland is still under construction, but is further along in terms of development here than elsewhere in the neighborhood, where we still have a number of townhouses being built. All the single-family homes along this street, with the exception of this home, are built and occupied. These single-family homes are built. This townhome is built. Again, here is the what we call the home store building that we want to start construction of very soon. What we're proposing here as part of this plan is to set aside specific spaces where folks that want to come to this office space, this non-residential space, are required to park. So we've designated what you see here in orange as spaces for non-residential users. They include 3 parking spaces behind the building, 3 parking spaces off-street along this intersection, and 3 on-street spaces here. In addition, there are 2 integrated garage spaces within the building that I've noted with this highlighting. This is a total of 11 parking spaces to serve a use that's going to be roughly 500 square feet. While the space is being utilized as a sales center for charter, we will, via notes on the plan, require that charter employees park in these garage spaces. And we'll also, via notes on the plan, not agree not to rent out any of the apartment uses above this area, above the commercial use here, until such time as our sales efforts have concluded, meaning that these 2 spaces in that garage will always be available for charter employees. That's where they'll park while they're on site selling. In addition to that, there are 15 on-street parking spaces directly across from these 6 homes. Again, the one here on the end is not built yet, but will be under construction fairly soon. These are being set aside and reserved just for residential residential use, homeowners and their guests. In addition, each of these single-family homes all have 2-car garages and driveway depths that are at least 18 feet that would allow additional vehicles to park in those driveways as well. The last thing that we want to incorporate into the plan, in addition to these kind of notes and these covenants that we've talked about, relate to a speed table. We heard issues that were raised by homeowners about concern that folks are speeding down Wayland Road, or with the entry of people coming to this space that may not live here, the propensity of those folks to speed. We're going to be installing a speed table along Wayland Road. I'm showing it here at this location across from the home store building, although we'll have to work with the township staff and its engineer to determine where exactly they'll want this speed table to go. But Again, the idea here is that this will be a raised pedestrian crossing of folks that want to cross the street mid-block that live here to get over to this green area. We heard about that at the last meeting. We'll have the opportunity to do that over a raised surface with signage that'll be shown on the plan. Again, that location is TBD in terms of how we're going to work that out with Erin and her folks, but there will be a speed table somewhere along Wayland Road to facilitate those crossings, and to the extent that there is traffic speeding along the stretch of Wayland Road, to address that as well. I'll just come back to, and just if I come back to, this design of the home store. I want to reiterate, and we're willing to put whatever conditions on the plan and your approval that, this building will look like what I'm showing you here today, which we think is the best way to safeguard against some more intense commercial use that, frankly, we didn't do a good job articulating at prior meetings. That's not what this will be, and think that this facade reflects that. With that, I'm happy to stop and answer some questions. I know Kelly is here. She can answer some questions. We have been in communication with several of the homeowners who have been here over the course of the last 30 days or so to discuss these changes. I'm sure they'll have comments as well, but I'm happy to pause here and answer any questions.
So commissioners, I have some questions, but I bet you some of them already be covered. So I would just say whoever would like to jump in here would be, now would be a good time. If you have any questions, I will, yeah.
Well, I guess I'll kick it off then, Anthony. And I'm sure the homeowners are here to speak as well. So I'm eager to hear your feedback. I just want to start and say I'm encouraged and thank you. I was pretty hard on you last meeting. I apologize. But I think we heard a lot of issues that, and a lot of these plans, the first plan isn't always what's reflected. And I think the neat part of this process is now getting to hear from so many people and saying, hey, these are our concerns. And I counted, I think, half a dozen changes that you guys made to reflect the concerns of residents, which, is very encouraging to me. I understand things change throughout the planning process, and we can't hold you to what you said in 2006 about how things play out. So I appreciate the work to do this. So I guess just to clarify here, I think you've addressed a lot of the concerns already in your comments. The parking, I love the dedicated residential parking idea to bring them down to designated spots. From my perspective on the plan, it looks like that's all what we call dead space, which is it doesn't appear to be in front of anyone's house. Directly, like that's on the side, and we know there's not going to be a townhouse there. This is on the side here. So I guess that's my one question, and I know this doesn't show up, so let me see if it shows up here. Yeah, this unit down here in the bottom left, where's the frontage on here? Would this be the same thing as here, where it's on the side? This doesn't front to Wayland, is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, the front, okay. And just come back up here to the overall plan. So this is where you were just pointing.
Yes.
So these homes are served by this alley. The garages are in the back. There is no parking in this alley. Mm-hmm. The front of these homes have these service walks that lead out to this this trail that then actually connects into other parts of the neighborhood. The parking for these homes, again, are a combination of garage spaces and driveway parking, and then on-street parking here and on-street parking here. These were the three that if somebody comes and wants to, come to this, non-residential space would be parking. The rest of these within walking distance would be available for these guys.
Okay. So it looks then, though, as though the spaces for these won't the idea is that they shouldn't take away from where residents would be parking or where their guests could park.
Yeah,
Is that fair to say?
That's the idea, that folks that, particularly in this area, there is no street frontage. That's, lots of homes are designed this way in Arcona. You access the walk in front of these homes from the side of those runs of homes.
Okay.
And that's what's happening here. That's the intent here.
Okay. And then in terms of the apartment uses, that was the thing I was hung up on last meeting. So there's still plans for 2 units. Would that be presumably in the second level of the home?
It would be.
Okay. And again, so those are 1 bedrooms, and you mentioned wouldn't be leased until after conclusion of the sale. And is what you're envisioning then that each one might have one of those garage spaces dedicated for them?
That's right.
Okay. Mr. President, I'll reserve any other comments I have. I'm curious what my colleagues have, as well as any residents who want to weigh in. But those were my initial questions, so thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Karen seemed like she had some questions. No. Okay.
right now.
Got it. Yep.
Thank you, though.
Commissioner Nagy, anything right now? I had a couple questions, and then I do want to hear from any of the residents that are from 8.1 or in the neighborhood. And I guess this could be for staff. Just to clarify, apartment use is already permitted regardless of the overall master plan, right? Or is that something that's in addition with the approval of this?
Well, our code is a traditional neighborhood development, which allows a mix of dwelling unit types.
Right.
The difference here is that a commercial use or mixed use building was not envisioned in the original 8.1 subdivision and land development plan. They have the overall master plan simply gerrymanders the village core line farther into 8.1 to facilitate what you just saw.
Right. So I guess that maybe my question didn't need to be asked, but I just wanted to clarify that. So apartment use, if the overall master plan had been originally designed in 8.1, we knew it would come out in this year. If it was there in the original, that would have been allowed in the TND itself?
Correct. A mix
Okay,
of dwelling unit types is allowed. It's just that the 8.1 plan didn't originally envision a mix.
But it wouldn't have needed to be in the core. The apartments
wouldn't need to be
because
in the
it's
core.
residential, right?
Okay. And then Anthony, I have a question. Is the use, the home story use that's going to be below the 2 apartments, and I'm encouraged by the rendering. I'll tell you that. I think that will automatically limit some potential problematic business type organizations maybe later on. But I would say, is it possible that the bottom is being built that it can be converted just to residential later?
I suppose it could.
Okay.
I mean, there are restroom facilities down there. You'd have to refurbish the space. Mm-hmm. The space today, as it's designed, is going to house an area where, again, you can come in and pick your finishes, as well as 2 meeting rooms to hold meetings and conferences with folks that come in.
And then the last question I had was, you referenced a lot of these things that you've proposed tonight and putting on here would be part of the recorded plan.
They would be.
Okay. Is that in place of, or did I misunderstand at the last time we were here about putting together like a conditional use maybe agreement?
Yeah, it would be, Commissioner. We, as we looked at this and thought through how to address the concerns that we heard, we think that by conditioning your approval on the fact that the building needs to look this way, and then also with the additional notes on the plan that I talked about, that restricts, how this space can be used, how this building can be used. So we stopped there and thought that we could cover this, the underlying issues with notes on the plan and this image.
Okay. Commissioner Kutch, you have something else?
Yes, one thing, Anthony, just popped back into my mind. Because one thing we had talked about was use after it's done on the ground floor. Is it still charter's intention to make that kind of a community space?
It is.
Okay, and that would be what? Just basically, I mean, in the apartments, there's a clubhouse that you can rent and whatnot. There, I guess the homeowners don't have a space like that as of now.
They don't. I mean, this is, again, I think we're anticipating that it's going to be, if the neighborhood association is holding a meeting, if there's a neighborhood group that wants to hold a meeting, that this space would be available, for that purpose.
Okay.
It would ultimately become, an asset of the neighborhood association.
Okay.
Commissioners, anything else? I'm going to,
I think it would be helpful if we had the use as the restriction on the plan, because going forward, it's easier for us to enforce and say it has to be like a community use is easier than, I appreciate the restrictive for parking, but enforcement for that starts to be difficult. And who is the entity that's enforcing that? So that gives me a little bit of pause. And then, while I think that a speed table is laudable, I didn't see that on the plans yet. And we haven't talked about our public works, how eventually I think Wayland is supposed to be dedicated, so we'd have to work on how we're going to plow. So I think good suggestions. We might need to work out
Sure.
some of the edges there.
Sure. Understood.
okay. Thank you. All right, so are there any of the homeowners here to make a comment? Was that it, Anthony?
Dean,
Okay.
Mr. President, before I go, I'm still hung up on the apartments. Why the apartment use? And does that, what's your, and I know we have this above the other commercial spaces. Thea has apartments upstairs. All the shops have townhomes above them. But do you just see that as a way to make sure that second floor is still able to be
Utilized.
used? Okay.
That's correct. That if we were just outfitting the ground floor of this space for something other than residential use, it just, we want to outfit the balance of the space rather than build a single story structure. It would serve some purpose.
So rather than having a civic space where no one uses the second floor anyway,
Correct.
Your proposal is, hey, why not put 2 bedrooms up here with living
Correct.
areas?
And
to make
they
that?
could be, they could be valuable, they could be part of the neighborhood.
Okay,
those folks.
sure.
Well, here's a question then. Is the business part of the apartments, or I guess the bottom, if there's rental, then ultimately-
I'm sorry.
No, the bottom part would be a rental later on. Let's say the homeowners can rent it for $100 for,
Right.
a party or something. That goes into is that owned by the HOA eventually? And then that revenue is there, and is the apartments also help offset HOA stuff, or is that a different entity?
Yeah, so the apartments would just be privately owned apartment space.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So someone's going to deed those or have those deeded
Correct.
to them. Okay,
correct.
got it.
And there'll be a landlord. I mean, initially certainly to be charter, and then this space.
Okay, fair enough. I just wanted to. I thought it was worth asking the question. Mhm.
Sure.
I see. Okay, commissioners, we good? Thank you. Staff? I would certainly welcome the residents that would like to make comment to come up one at a time if you'd like. Just.
All right, I will.
I was actually counting on it.
All right, I know the drill. Lauren Chartle, 3110 Wayland Road. All right, well, I know you've heard from me multiple times, so I won't go over everything that I've already said, but my thing is thank you for listening. Obviously, I still would not like this there. That's just not what I bought into, and you've heard that. And that's what everybody in that on that side of the neighborhood has told you. But I do have one question: is when was 8.1 approved? Does anyone know that? Was this like
I can look it up while you talk.
Okay,
Yeah,
was
she
this, like,
probably
was this
give-
2006?
can-
Because then I really won't fault you. But like, if this was like last year, like, why wasn't this thought of if we knew we were going over here?
I'm sure that the actual date of approval she'll be able to pull up.
Okay. Well, thank you for looking up that. But yeah, I mean, I think it's beautiful. I think if we can restrict the use of it, I mean, that's great. I mean, if that's the best we can do, then that's the best we can do as like a resident. But yeah, I still don't understand the apartments. It would be nice if they were single family, if they were not, or single family, but like homes that people could purchase. But Kelly has reached out to me multiple times and kind of reassured me through it all. And like I said, I would still obviously not like it, but if there is the restriction of what it's going to be later on, I think that gives a lot of us a peace of mind. Yeah.
And while she's looking up that date, I think I can even kind of answer your question, because I don't know exactly when that was approved, because I don't remember the exact date. I'll say that before homes are built and these phases get moving, it's really hard to gauge what the reaction and how things are going to actually come out. It's hard to gauge that there would be so many younger families or people that want to start younger families moving into a neighborhood anywhere, I would think. And so for as many people, and this has been my experience since I've been around since 2014 in the township, and Arcona broke ground shortly thereafter, has been, it's not that it's not well thought out, but there's a lot of people that I run into that actually on very similar circumstances want just the opposite. They want more of perhaps what they're proposing and less maybe bigger residential homes. You know, I've heard that too. So it's hard to gauge without having people coming before us like yourself. And usually that's after the fact because you've moved in and things are starting to settle. So I would say no fault of anybody in particular, other than it probably all seemed like it was going to work out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Those changes probably seemed encouraging at the time based on feedback that we were getting. That would probably be my answer to that, but I don't know exactly what the date is, and you know, if it was last week, then I think that maybe.
I mean, like, if that's the other thing is like part of where the actual lot is, where it's being placed, isn't optimal. If you live in that area of the neighborhood, like that is the like main hub of the neighborhood, and to stick I know, I'm not going to say commercial, but a commercial space that looks like a home, still same kind of use, but there where it's going to increase local traffic. I mean, that's, I think, one of the other concerns. And parking, whatever, I park in my driveway. But I think it's the traffic increase that is a safety concern. And the fact that, you know, they're going to be building out so much more. Like that part of where they're going to build it is done. Like all the houses there are already done. So why not move it to one of the newer phases? So those are just my couple of thoughts. But again, I want to thank Charter for definitely listening and making sure that our voices were heard. And I just hope that whatever you guys decide, you know, goes for both the residents and, you know, the future of Charter as well. So, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
It looks like it was the end of October of 2020.
2020, right. Yeah. Commissioners, any other comments or questions? This is up for discussion or possible action. It's my understanding that we could take action. Tabling it might be a difficult proposal because of the timing. So I would say if anyone has any comments, if we want to take action tonight or continue discussion, we should probably talk about it now.
Mr. President, I just had a question to follow up on what Aaron was describing. So if there were to be a conditional use, basically following the model home scenario being complete. I guess my question is twofold. At what time would that, how long would you have for the model home to be in place? And then I guess this question goes for more detailed. How do we get that into the plan? Is that something we would write into the plan in terms of, you have the model home for 5 years or whatever period of time? I don't know what that answer is, but then is that something that gets recorded so that it becomes a community center for here to eternity, as long as that's recorded? Or if someone could just help me understand how that works.
So the plan does get recorded, so if they put a note on the plan that henceforth will be the use, then when someone would come to us to build it out, we would be able to say, here, we're not going to give you a permit for that because that's not a permitted use per this plan.
Okay.
As for the timing of it, I think that the triggering factor would be when they leave and somebody else wants to come in and how they would build it out.
Okay. And how long do you foresee having it be a model home or an office space?
4 to 5 years.
5 years, okay.
Maybe more. I mean, just depending on where we go for the next phase, it's a good location for them. So.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioners, any other questions or comments?
So I guess just one question, Anthony. Going back, at some point, if it wanted to be residential, could we say future use could be either community space or residential, so that if you decided you wanted to sell it as a home and let someone move in there and make it a single family home again, we could do that? Is that like if Charter owns it, you have the plan for 2 apartments right now, but 5 years from now you decide, well, I think we didn't like the apartment idea, we're just going to sell the whole thing as a single family home. Is that something that
would be fine?
Okay.
Yeah, we wouldn't have any objection to that.
So when we're talking about the use restriction, it can be future use, can be community or residential use. Is that accurate, Aaron? Okay. Thanks, Anthony.
I did have Mr. Schwartz wanted to make a comment.
Joseph Schwartz, 1706 Letchworth Road. I recognize I'm not a resident of Arconis, but something popped up in my head as we were talking about this. I was curious about the actual boundaries of the core neighborhood that were being changed. Where exactly is that boundary going to go? Is that going to incorporate other residential plots within the neighborhood or just the subject plot?
You want me to take that one?
This was motion for scroll down.
It's really changing 2 pages in the OMP.
Oh, God.
Okay.
Okay.
So here's the board.
Yeah, so that's the dashed black line is the core neighborhood line. What we've already worked through with staff as part of this plan is that
This is what they added.
Yeah. The other areas that are shaded like yellow there, which were proposed for residential use, are restricted to residential use given the covenants that were even recorded against the real estate. So they could never become commercial uses.
Despite the change in the boundary.
Right.
Okay, that was my concern.
Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, commissioners, I think we've heard a lot here, and so if we want to take action on this evening, now would be the time.
Mr. President, I'm prepared to make a motion for that. Just would like to comment. I appreciate this. We saw the same thing with Sheets. Anytime we have something, we have resident concerns, it's always great to go back to the drawing board and just do that. You guys have been fantastic in reaching out to residents, so I appreciate it. If it's not exactly what residents want, at least it's taking those concerns into consideration. We've addressed parking, we've addressed the rendering, we've addressed garage spaces, preserving residential parking for the residents. We've addressed safety concerns through a speed table. I understand that needs to be a further conversation, but these are the things that I think we are encouraged to see, especially as we're finishing out our development here, and this is our biggest development project in the township to date, and will be for the next several years. We just want to make sure we're taking our residents' feedback into account, especially since they're the ones who have to live there. From our perspective, we want to make sure the development is done responsibly and it's done in a way that's going to keep a high quality of life for those who live in Arcona, like myself. So again, I appreciate your taking the time to address those concerns. I think we're in a much different position than we were 2 weeks ago now that you guys have had those conversations. And Anthony, I think your suggestions on plan notes and use restrictions are very well thought out, and that's the direction I'd like to go. So, Mr. President, with that, I will move to approve OMP 2021-14 revised Arcona master plan, and conditionally, Steve, for motion purposes, does my motion need to include those restrictions that we had discussed? I have a list. I just want to see what motion.
You're certainly able to read it in if you wish. I think what we heard from the discussion, they're going to be plan notes. So I think that when that's a separate piece when that's recorded.
Okay, so. But should my motion be conditioned on inclusion of plan notes?
If you want clarity, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Well, then in that case, the approval will be conditioned on construction and the final plan matching the rendering we saw tonight, or substantially similar to the rendering we saw tonight. And plan notes restricting use following a period of commercial use limited to what charter has set forth, restrictions to community and or residential use in the future, and conditioned upon further discussion with township staff upon feasibility of traffic safety devices, for example, speed tables. And I believe that is all for the motion. And if I'm missing anything on that list, commissioners, please feel free to add an amendment. Yes.
I believe also that the employees will park in the garage.
Yes, and parking and also conditioned upon the parking plan we reviewed this evening, including designated spots for employees and non-residential, and reservation of spots for current homeowners as well along Wayland Road. And thank you, Mr. Eby, and I believe that is the motion.
I'll second that with the additions.
I have the motion as stated by Commissioner Kutz, and I have a second by Commissioner Nagy, and now's the time for any other discussion. And I would just like to make a comment or two. This has gone through staff, the Planning Commission, and while I've heard hesitation and shrugs along the way, and we've talked about this quite a bit now, I haven't seen anything that was like blinking lights other than what the homeowners have brought forward, which they're the ones who live there, and we should pay a lot of attention to what our residents are saying. And I believe we are developing a culture here in Lower Island Township where we're listening to them more and more. And I would like to thank them, first of all, for being engaged in this, because none of these changes that are compromises, if you want to call them that, none of this would have really happened without you interfering. I was there at the Planning Commission meeting, and I heard you very loud and clear, very loud and clear. While ideally it didn't work out exactly, perhaps is what you were expressing, I think there were some compromises. I'm going to vote for this ultimately because And here, I think we have to look at the overall best interests of the township, and like I said, our staff and our planning commission, who vets things. This gets filtered before it gets to us, and now we've filtered it quite a bit. We have to do what we believe is in the overall best interest and right thing of the township. But I would just point out to Charter, Anthony, I appreciate you having folks coming now and reaching out to residents. It seems like it was a long time to get to this point, but I have faith that, moving forward, perhaps as the new phases roll out, we can get ahead of some of this stuff. And I know one thing, we'll be a lot more vigilant as a board moving into the next couple of years. So I think it would be appropriate to continue doing what you're doing to reach out to residents, and that, because I think it'd be helpful to kind of finish the process over at Arcona. So that's all the comments I had. But, so I have a motion and a second on the table. I'll call for the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? This motion carries 4-0. Thanks, everybody, for the very healthy discussions. Now we're moving on to our township manager.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll just give the residents a minute or so to leave.
Thank you. Hey, best of luck in your run.
Okay, Mr. President, Board, the first item I have on there is as part of our reorganization of the Public Works Department, we created a position of it's maintenance specialist 2. It's actually is like a crew leader. These are the people that will run the jobs on site, whereas the supervisors will be in charge of several jobs, and they will move between jobs. The people that are in charge on the site will be maintenance specialist 2s. We have a job description that was developed for this position, which was submitted to the board. And actually, the job descriptions are for the 3 people that are currently being promoted to that position. So first thing we wanted to do was have the board approve the job description, since it is a new job description, we didn't currently have.
Mr. President, if there's no discussion, I will move to approve the job description for maintenance specialist 2.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Kutz and a second from Commissioner Nagy. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you, Mr. President. The second item there is we are recommending an additional 53 cents per hour be paid to those people who have been promoted to maintenance specialist 2 for the additional responsibility that they will be taking on to run the jobs.
Commissioners, any questions?
Mr. Manager, I was just curious, do you foresee this pay increase needing to reflect back to any other positions?
No. As far as like a trickle-down effect?
Yes.
No, this is it. We got, actually, the last salary study was very generous, complimentary. It was for the folks. So a lot of them got very, very good raises. And this, we looked at bumping, I think it's an even $29 an hour for and all 3 of these people that are being promoted to these positions are all at the same rate. So it'll bring them all to an even $29 an hour.
Okay, thank you.
So, I think you answered the question. I was just wondering, how does this affect, other employees? I mean, it's not going to affect anybody else.
No, I believe that was Commissioner Karen's
Yeah.
question. It's just those 3, and in the future, any other person that would be promoted to that type of position. Right now, we only have 3: 2 in maintenance operations and 1 in parks, and we don't look at expanding that really much.
Got it. Okay. So, commissioners, we probably want to take some action on this if you're so inclined this evening.
Mr. President, I'll move to make the hourly pay for public works staff designated as maintenance specialist 2 to $29 an hour.
I'll second that.
I have a motion from Commissioner Kutz, a second from Commissioner Karen. Any other discussion, questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. All right.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have nothing further.
Sure. Next, we'll move on to commissioner reports. So we do have an executive session this evening. So after commissioner reports, we will most likely recess to executive session. So I'll start with Dave Hall.
There we go. It was stuck. Mr. President, I just wanted to bring to the board's attention that that PCCD grant for that Crime Watch Law Enforcement Exchange project was submitted. The board had approved us submitting that grant. That went in on the 31st of March. So we had 14 endorsement letters from police chiefs in 4 counties for that endeavor. So PCCD probably will not report back an approval until sometime in the fall. But we're crossing our fingers and hoping that goes through. It'll be as we said in the grant, it will be a game changer in how law enforcement exchanges information pre-arrest, essentially as part of their investigation. So I want to let the board know that was rolling. Appreciate your permission to apply for that grant. The next thing is that Lisburn Fire Company, we're doing the facility study presentation that was done here. Scott Rhino is going to be doing that out there along with staff. That'll be at Lisburn Fire Company in the social hall on Thursday the 21st at 7 p.m. So the board's welcome to attend. The public's welcome to attend. It's something that it's going to be some of you have already heard it when the presentation was done here, but some of the folks at Lisburn would like us to do it out there specifically for them. So we're going to do that. And the other thing, the final, is that April the 2nd, the police department was provided their CLIA accreditation. Commissioner Nagy went down with us, so we certainly appreciated that. He got to see the hearing process and the questions that were given to us as for the report. And then that evening, the award. We're not doing a presentation here at this point because part of the presentation of the award is here's a folder and in it is the letter saying that you got reaccredited. So there's really not a lot to present. They will send us the plaque in the mail, and at that point we'll schedule something at the meeting to do an official plaque, receipt of plaque, presentation. So that'll be downrange. So it was, it's an honor. And just listening to the comments of the commissioners that we listened to, it's really an honor to be here and to be part of this organization, this township, and this police department. They do a fantastic job. Leon is home ill, so I don't know if he's listening tonight or not, but a lot of kudos go to him and Julie as well, who kind of shepherded that process through. So it's just great. So thank you. Just want to bring it to your attention.
Great. Thank you. Steve?
Actually, I do have one item. Ordinarily, I don't do litigation items in open session, but this is just a matter of calendaring. The West Shore solicitors that are working on the P3 bridge tolling case met today, and one of the things we talked about was choosing witnesses. I think we have the selections, and it's really limited, one person per municipality. But I also know this has a lot of public interest, so I want to let you folks know if you want to attend the preliminary injunction hearing in Commonwealth Court. It's April 25th at 10 o'clock in New Judicial Center. You wouldn't be participating as a witness, but you're welcome to attend. And I know that the discussion today is that the other participating municipalities like Lemoyne, Wormleysburg, New Cumberland, Camp Hill may have observers. So certainly want to make sure that if you want to be in town that day and listen, it is obviously something that may be of great deal interest to you and certainly your residents.
Thank you.
Sure.
Rebecca?
Nothing this evening, thank you.
John?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just quickly, May is Building Safety Month. We typically ask you to pass a resolution that we forward to the International Code Council. I'll be working with Tom on some agenda items for the 25th of April. We'd like to do a brief presentation to let the public know how what we do in our Uniform Construction Code administration affects durability, public safety, and provide safe buildings for our first responders to enter. So with your consent and Tom's help, we'll set up a brief program for the 25th.
Okay.
Thank you.
Renee? Tom? Start with Josh. Commissioner Nagy tonight?
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank actually Director Hall, Captain Crone, and Lieutenant Sentman for their outstanding professionalism this weekend. They put in significant effort into this process and accreditation, more than just a single weekend's effort. It clearly, I learned so much about it, and it's a several-year process of data collection and record keeping, and not only just keeping the records, but interpreting and processing appropriately and adjusting to what the data shows. We have a police department that we all and our residents can be very proud of, and have the utmost confidence in our police department's leadership and our officers. I want to make sure everybody knows that.
Is that it? Thank you. Commissioner Cutts?
Thank you, Mr. President. Briefly, I want to officially extend a welcome to Commissioner Karen. Thank you for stepping up and your willingness to serve. It's a pleasure to have you. Mr. President, it was also a pleasure to attend the grand opening of Trader Joe's in Lower Allen Township, and I would like to offer my commendation to our Development Authority for shepherding the process, but mostly for Aaron Trone, our wonderful assistant manager. The project obviously could not have happened without all your work, several years. I was disappointed there was no ribbon for you to cut. No doubt you should be the one to cut it. So just want to thank you for your work there. Look, I've been critical of the Development Authority at times. I think we had a rocky first year on the board where, it's hard sometimes to sit here and trust that it's going to work out when you're just seeing an empty Bonton and not really sure what's going to happen there. One of the first things I attended on the board was the demolition of the Bonton. I was like, great, now what? And look, I think people from across our region, not even just our county, our region, are recognizing the significance of this get. I think it's incredible for Lower Allen Township. I think it just kind of, it speaks volumes to the work we can accomplish. And look, I think the rest of the project in, handing it off to the private sector kind of, I think is a good balance of, we have a blighted property the private sector hasn't touched. Let's see what we can do with it, but then let's hand it off when the time is right. And I think we struck an appropriate balance there. And that was always the one thing I was hung up on was, okay, at what point is this no longer the purview of a township or township authority? And I just want to say thank you for sticking with me and answering those pesky questions. It was all in the interest of hoping this project turned out well. I think, you're holding on and making sure we got Trader Joe's as the anchor. You don't get the developers without having the anchor there. So the fact that Chick-fil-A is coming in, we can say that, right? The fact that, and I was told that's 85%, so not 100% yet, but the fact that we have a developer who's looking to bring in Chick-fil-A, the fact that we have a hotel developer after the delay of a pandemic, who's able to complete a hotel that's coming along more and more every day. It's not the convention center we thought we were going to get 3 or 4 years ago. But I tell you what, in some ways, it just seems better, than having a convention center there. So I just think, look, this is what we're moving towards as a township. Our Gettysburg Road Corridor study, I think, kind of highlights that. We're moving Lower Allen forward. We're moving it in a direction that highlights the importance of these projects for our residents and how they can impact quality of life. And I think that's the important thing. For me, it's a 5-minute drive instead of 17 to get a chicken sandwich. But it's also, it's so much more than that. And it makes me so excited for the plans that we have, the studies we've put together for what's coming down the pike. We're just about built out as a township development-wise. And guess what? We're starting to redevelop. And the Gettysburg Road corridor, I think, number one, it's Lower Allen. And look, I walk in and it says, "Welcome to your Camp Hill Trader Joe's." And I remarked to someone I was with, it's a shame that doesn't say Lower Allen yet. And I was explaining to friends of mine from law school who had come over 30 minutes from across the river for the grand opening. I was explaining to them how we're working on our brand as Lower Allen. We have Lower Allen Drive. This is Lower Allen Township. I would love for that mural to say, "Welcome to your Lower Allen Trader Joe's." It's too bad we couldn't slip that into the contract. But look, I think the point is, down the line, when you talk about Township's identity, you talk about a place people are proud to call home. We don't have a Lower Allen, PA mailing zip code, but we do have, I think residents will see why this is a great place to live, great place to raise a family, and a great place to stay. And it's all these projects that are coming down the pike. So I'm sorry, that's a long-winded way to say I'm proud of the work you guys have done. I'm very happy to be a part of it, and very excited to see what's next. So thank you, Mr. President. That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Karen?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. My family and I had the pleasure of attending the Township's Easter egg hunt this past Saturday morning, despite the lovely springtime weather we were having. And I just wanted to pass along my compliments and appreciation to the Public Works, the Recreation Board, and the Township staff and volunteers that were there that morning. It was very well planned, very well executed, and it was, I think, a great time for a lot of families and residents of the Township. So thank you very much.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Great. Yeah, I'll start there. I didn't attend the Easter egg hunt. Our kids are grown.
We got candy for you.
Oh, thank you. But I was gonna stop in, and then all kinds of things were happening. Our church was having its chicken barbecue. You see the chicken barbecue signs. That's our church around the township. And I was gonna make some of my time there, and then go over there and say hello to the folks and hang out a little bit and see who was the Easter bunny. Do we know?
It's a real Easter bunny.
Scott Duncanson. Yeah, Scott.
Gotcha. Yeah. Your kids aren't watching, I hope. Okay. Sorry.
And the suit needs dry cleaned after the.
Okay.
It's very
But I'll say this, I couldn't make it because we had some family stuff with our daughter coming into town at the last minute, so I had to juggle too many things. But I saw some emails, and I was copied, and thanks for keeping us posted on the possibility of making some adjustments. And that's what happened. And what essentially on Saturday, over the weekend, it seemed like we had all 4 seasons in a couple of days, And it was like, they made it work. And they weren't just going to cancel it. I mean, the thought probably crossed everybody's mind, and I appreciate that a lot because, the Easter egg hunt pretty much gets closed into the week before Easter, and if it doesn't happen on those weekends, it's probably not going to happen. And that's great that people were able to show up and be able to participate regardless. So kudos to making it happen, to Parks and Rec and Public Works, and I know Heather does a lot of work.
Heather did a great job.
Yeah.
Heather Dowden.
So thank you for making that happen for the residents of the township very much. I too attended the Trader Joe's grand opening. Aaron, thank you again for all your hard work and the Development Authority. I also attended the construction preview walkthrough for the hotel this past week, and very impressive. I was surprised that the attendees for that were many other investors, and it was a nice event. But I mean, it was interesting to learn how serious the developers of the hotels are and how hopeful they are about this site. They're just all excited about it. And I see this site turning into people can come for a weekend from out of town and they can shop at a mall that's a good mall, one of the better malls in the country probably, that still exists, and have all kinds of restaurant options, shop at Trader Joe's. I mean, that's an event in itself, right? So we've really got some good stuff going on here. I recently said on Facebook, Lower Allen's on the move. So thanks for everything and that. But so that's about it. All I have. We're going to go into executive session for 3 issues: zoning hearing board candidates, personnel issue, and potential litigation. But prior to going in, Ms. Hall would like to share some comments at the podium.
Hi, I'm Katie Hall, 1403 Letchworth Road. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I just wanted to put a face with a name. I submitted my resume for the zoning hearing board position. And my husband and I moved to Lower Allen Township in 2020, and we've really loved kind of getting to meet all our neighbors. We're in the Highland Park neighborhood, and really just enjoy living in this township. So I think my background in state and local government would be good for the position, and I'm looking back to a way to support the township in any way that I can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, commissioners, I think we are going to just recess to executive session.
There's nothing to bring back with B and C. So unless you think you may be appointing the ZHB candidate tonight, you probably can adjourn.
Okay, so, and I don't think we would, because I think Ed wants to be here for the discussion. He was hoping to be here. So I will adjourn the meeting.